let's talk a little bit about vibrato. How does this work on this instrument? What do you do when you're vibrating?
Well, I can tell you a lot about how it doesn't work, but how it does work is
it's a little mysterious, isn't it?
Yeah. A little bit mysterious. It doesn't work well with lip vibrato. I mean, I sometimes feel the vibrato in my lips. In other words, I feel the fluctuation in the air pressure in here, and by allowing the reed to do its thing to create vibrato, I can feel it. But it's certainly not initiated ever in my jaw or my lip, ever, under any circumstances. Well, I shouldn't say ever, because there's a piece by Untitled that calls for a cricket dying at the end of the movement, and it asks for a lip vibrato. So it's
yeah.
So for effect, maybe.
So never say never, but
never say never, but for a beautiful sound.
Yeah.
I guess I was taught what people refer to as a diaphragm vibrato, which is a little bit of a misnomer because the diaphragm is not a voluntary muscle. It's a abdominal wall vibrato, if anything. The abdominal wall moves, pumps, whatever, in order for the diaphragm to move, and so that the air has a certain fluctuation. I guess that's maybe the best way to teach vibrato, and then move away from it. Because if it's too diaphragmy, it gets real. It has that dead car battery sound.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not so good.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I like to conceptualize vibrato as being a fluctuation in intensity, of the sound and the color, and the fluctuation of volume somewhat, and a fluctuation of pitch only a tiny bit, and only going up from the core pitch. Because on the oboe, the worst thing is to hear this pitch kind of go up and down. And it's one of my students calls that flarp, because you don't know where it is.
Yeah.
It's just all over the place.
Yeah, there you go.
But really, I want to have a steady pitch center with a little bit of this moving, if anything, just a slight bit above that in pitch. But mostly, it's a fluctuation in air pressure and tone color and those kinds of things. So I usually start out having students play, just a good solid note. A half-hold D is a really nice big sounding note to play, and have them kind of just pulsate quarter notes, so that it gets really strong and then soft, strong and then soft. And the key here with that first step is that the soft is not a withholding of air. It's not releasing air and then holding it back, which is very tight. It's releasing a lot of air and then releasing a little air. So you go from a yell to a stage whisper, where you're moving that air. It's not a lot of air, but you're still moving it.
Yeah.
So that sounds like. Like that. And you can see that my embouchure moves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when the air increases quite a lot, the reed is obviously going to open up more. And the embouchure has to allow that to happen. Otherwise, what you get is not much happening,
Yeah, exactly.
and except not a very pretty sound. So the embouchure has to allow that expansion of the reed, and that's what I mean, that I can feel it in my embouchure, but I'm not producing it there.
Yeah.
And I won't produce it there because it's not good.
Yeah.
And it destabilizes everything. Okay, so then we go from quarter notes to eighth notes usually. So. And I'm noticing now when I do that my abdominal wall, in order to get that fluctuation, is going out. It's not coming in.
Right.
If I come in, I cut off the airflow.
Sure. Yeah.
So it moves out.
Right.
So I'm going ba, wah, wah, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into triplets. And then from there, it's pretty easy for me just to kind of let go of it
Mm-hmm.
and just let it do its hopefully unmetered thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think of vibrato as waves in the ocean,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And when you're out at sea, there's just these big rolling
Yeah.
kind of waves. They don't crest. They don't look like
Mhm.
waves. They're just big swells,
Mhm.
you know, because it's so deep. And the swells can be very deep underwater,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But the shallower the ocean floor becomes, or you know,
Yeah.
the water becomes, the more likely you are to have a real crest in the wave,
Mhm.
until you get very shallow and it's just a
Yeah. Yeah.
like this.
Mhm.
So I often will have students sort of take their vibrato and try to sink it so deep inside the sound
Mhm.
that it's inaudible,
Hmm.
and then gradually bring it up so that it's audible, but it's just big swells,
Mhm.
and then gradually bring it up more so that it becomes more obvious cresting kinds of waves, and then just a little
Yeah.
shimmer like so.
Yeah.
You know, let's see if I can do that. It's getting a little dry. So it just comes right up.
Yeah.
You know.
And you can actually hear the changes in the intensity as you go through the note. But that's terrific.
I've heard some people describe it as further back and further forward too, which makes some sense to me.
Yeah.
But this way, to me, it's all about the relationship between the vibrato and the tone.
Yeah.
You know, is there more tone than vibrato, or more vibrato than tone?
Mhm.
And that becomes really important at the ends of phrases,
Mhm.
for example, where sometimes people will end a phrase and they'll forget to sync the vibrato first, so that it turns into this little
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the note, and it's all vibrato, and suddenly they can't control the end of the note.
Mhm.
So if you're going to make a long taper like that, you want to get the vibrato to kind of go under
Mhm.
the sound,
Yeah.
and so that at the end all you have is tone,
Yeah.
no vibrato at all.
Yeah. You know, I'm trying to think of a takeaway lesson from all this discussion about the vibrato, and it seems to me that one of the points you're making, at least as I'm hearing you today, is that you're really letting go when you're doing your vibrato. You're more relaxed when you're doing your vibrato. You're not trying to move more muscles to do
Right.
that.
No.
And even with the example that you gave about moving in quarter notes and then eighth notes and triplets and so on, it seemed to me as though you were really exerting so little effort to make that happen. I mean, just imperceptibly small amount of effort to make that happen.
Right.
And the reason I wanted to say that is I know so often when I see kids say, I'm practicing my vibrato, and they're banging against the note, to make that happen, and it's just doing the opposite of what we want them to do.
What you want in a vibrato is you want the sound itself to just open up and come back, and come back to good, not come back to nothing. But it's just an opening. It's and that needs to be supple and easy. So
yeah, and that's sort of another recurring thing that I see coming back is just the emphasis on things not being physically hard to do.
Right.
I mean, it seems like that the skill that's being developed is more control than strength.
That's true.
You're not working to do things harder. You're doing them more subtly, with a more controlled way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great.